This is the Venerable Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche seminar entitled The Theory and Practice of Meditation, held at Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado. This is talk number 5, July 31st, 1978. This is an ARP digital remaster made October 2007.
Theory and Practice of Meditation. This will be the fifth talk given on July 31st, 1978 by Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche at Naropa Institute Summer Auditorium.
Good evening. Continuing our course, tonight we are going to discuss the Paramitas in connection with starting on the Mahayana journey. In order to present that, I would like to also make sure that you understand the importance of the shamatha and vipassana discipline. I'm afraid I have to bring that again and again. It is very important. And the Mahayana journey sometimes becomes somewhat idealistic. And fantasy world. In order to make the Mahayana journey into a very much functional level, a practical level, to our own path, to our own journey, it is utmost important for us to realize the necessity of taming our mind and developing some sense of further cognitive aspiration of prajna. That is to say, prajna we discussed before, and it means having some kind of idea as to how to relate with the phenomena world, and having some sense of spark in which that we can actually discriminate between experiences, between phenomenal situations. Discriminating in this case does not necessarily mean to say rejecting and accepting, but discriminating in the sense of what is what, which is which. Like if you are reading a sentence, you have to learn to discriminate from each alphabet, each punctuations, declensions, and the grammar, and the whole thing had to be understood. So then you can make a comprehensive reading out of what you're reading. That doesn't necessarily mean to say that you reject one particular aspect of the speech and accept another aspect of the speech. But you see the nouns as nouns and verbs as verbs. So you have some understanding of how things work. So in that way, the prajna of discriminating awareness, wisdom, meaning that you have developed some kind of intelligence as to how to look at issue, phenomena world, one's mind, one's life, one's world, properly, fully. So you have no problem in understanding what the message of the phenomena world is all about. So with that kind of understanding of prajna, which is the key to the whole paramita systems, and prajna meaning intellect, the translation, the closest translation that we come up is intellect. But here we are not particularly talking in terms of intellectualizing as such, but we are talking purely in terms of how things could be viewed and heard and seen as clear as much as possible. So we understand the dharmas in that way. With that kind of state of mind, which is not only just realizing things as they are alone, but there is also another state of mind which involved with that is how to go about, how to use one's prajna, how to go about, which is the concept of paramitas. Para meaning other, mita, paramita together meaning that the other shore, the other side. That means gone beyond, transcended. The reason why we call these are the 6 paramitas, paramitas meaning that we usually have this shore view, that we are this side of the river, that everything's according to us alone. And we had never experienced or even attempted to experience the other shore's experience, the other side of the river's experience. Partly because we begin to feel inadequate and anxious and nervous and feel self-conscious of ourselves. This person, Joe Schmidt, is concerned about his Joe Schmidt-ness rather than he's willing to explore somebody else on the other shore. So that is what's known as the problematic situation for us to unable to transcend. We are not talking transcending in any high-floated level of mystical experience of any kind at all, in this case, paramita, the transcendence. The transcendence is simply that we learn to experience other than ours, which doesn't have to be somebody's experience particularly, but something beyond ourselves. Other. Yeah, meaning not the other person. We're not talking about encounter group approach here, but we are simply talking in terms of how we actually could expand our vision further without paying too much attention to this Joe Schmidt all the time. And anything we try to learn, try to experience, is always how to survive Joe Schmidt and how to maintain this all the time. That has become problematic. And if we begin to approach that level, it is become too much individualistic. And we have no chance to experience what's known as the paramitas, the beyond the shore, the other shore, gone beyond. So the notion of a paramita is very important. Before we discuss the details of what paramitas are exactly, once we begin to save ourselves purely and reject any possibilities of other exists, then we are running into a big problem. For one thing, we become short-sighted. For another thing, we become insensitive. And thirdly, that we are totally bound with ourselves, so therefore we are subject to hideous, terrible, very awkward, ignorant. And we have no way of opening our eyes, looking ahead to the east at all. Our eyelids are ridden with lead. The paramita concept frees ourselves from that. As I have already discussed before, first the starting point is having some notion of discriminating awareness wisdom as to how to see things, how to multiply things, and how to reduce things, and how to see them as straightforwardness in the phenomena world, that we're actually able to see them as they are. If it's egg, it's egg, an egg. Whether it is boiled, it is boiled. If it's natural state, it's natural state. If it's fried, it's fried state. So we have no problem in experiencing an egg. We have developed that kind of discriminate awareness wisdom towards the egg, which makes us able to eat proper eggs. You don't just open the refrigerator and throw your egg in your mouth. We do something about it, something about what this egg exists in our refrigerator. That is discriminate awareness wisdom. Straightforward and gentle and precise. When we begin to establish that kind of understanding, that kind of reality properly and fully, then we have at least the facilities to look into our skillful actions, what we should be doing with that kind of discriminating awareness, wisdom, which is prajna. The first comes first, obviously, which is the first skillful means, is what's known as Dhanna Paramita, which is generosity. And in this case, when we talk about a generosity, we are not talking in terms of lavishness or just constantly giving alone. When we begin to do that, we expect something in return. Everything in our life is always checks and balance, but we try to take advantage of that much more than necessary. In the relationships, for instance, that you're afraid to give inch, so the other partner might take a mile. And therefore you have some kind of negotiation as to how far you should go, how far you should not go. And our basic notion of generosity is you're doing something for them so that they can respond in a certain way and they could be included in our territory within reasonability. But when we talk about the Dhanna Paramita, we are talking about, believe it or not, a general sense of giving up individual territory. When you give up individual territory, the whole world is invited into your world. That there is no calculation involved. There's no individual irritation involved. Individual irritation is an expression of not being generous. Obviously, the notion of generosity is simply providing some state of a delightfulness. And when you have that, some state of a delightfulness, as the Regent talked to you the other day, in the talking terms of opening up to your experiences and walking on a desert, admiring the footprints of the Buddha. And when we have some sense of heroism and a basic sense of a delight in opening ourselves up, in fact, we secure our territory very interestingly, but that's not quite the point here. The question is that when we begin to open ourselves up without landmark of fence around our territory, suddenly, out of the blue, so to speak, you begin to experience so delightful. Feels so good. One wonders where that comes from. That is coming from because you have given up your strain and hassle, anxiousness, anxiety of holding onto your territory, which is a big strain on ourselves all the time. We worry about that. We say, wish I could open myself up. But in saying, unfortunately, I couldn't. And that means tremendous depression and fundamental sense of me, wretched. The joy of the first bhumi comes from being generous. Generous to oneself as well as generous to others at the same time. And the oneself and others, we don't have to actually clarify which belongs to which, but there's a total sense of freedom and liberation. You begin to realize that you can kick and dance in the fresh air, declare your generosity, your dana paramita. And some sense of freedom is taking place. At that point, you can share your universe with anybody else without having any problems. That is a very wonderful subject to begin with the paramitas. And one of the first skillful means is to be generous. Not even open up one's territory, which has a bad connotation from this point of view, but just take down your fence altogether. That would be good. If any of us can do that.
I can. All right, Sophie.
Seeing is believing. Well, better to go on for the next one. That kind of basic goodness of generosity also brings us to the next paramita, which is discipline, shila. Of course, one doesn't lie on one's own dirt and being generous and declare that. But you go beyond that. Is having some sense of a discipline, and the discipline here meaning proper conduct. What is the proper here meaning? Proper meaning no indulgency of one's discovery or one's experience or one's sense of virtuousness or any kind of indulgency, which is to say that definition of indulgency here meaning that you have found something and you go beyond it, you go over and over again and again. And since that thing, particular thing, which is entertaining and it works for you, so you keep on replaying your trip The discipline is upright, delightful all the way, because the takeover from the continuation from the generosity is the delight is always there. But at the same time, there's some sense of spotlessness, purity, and cleanness, that there will be no messy corners of any kind. And one's life become good and straightforward, and at the same time very pure and clean. Obstacles being resolved largely because of one's practice of shamatha and vipashyana practice already. That has become the main factor of the whole thing. When there's a training of one's own mind taking place, shamatha and vipassana level, the sense of discipline becomes very natural. Physically, you have a good posture. Psychologically, your mind is clear, precise, and clean at the same time. When we talk about clean here, we are not talking in terms of that you are expected to have 100% controlled, virtuous thoughts happening. But its attitude to your mind is become very good and a spark that even though amidst of a subconscious gossip, that you begin to find there's some space and some room for fresh air taking place all along. Then we have the next one being patience, kshanti, patience. And patience here, it doesn't necessarily mean to say you have to wait for a long time for something or other. Patience has a different meaning in the regular Western linguistics. The British concept of patience is that you are fully dressed in South India, where the whole thing is very hot. And in spite of your sweat, you still wear your uniform and smile and puff a lip. That's not quite the kind of patience we are talking in terms of. But the patience we are talking here in terms of non-aggression, basically. The aggression is the impatience of all along. The aggression obviously comes from pissed off at certain situations, and you begin to feel unfriendly to certain situations. You react immediately. So kshanti or patience here are synonym to the concept of gentleness. Again, we carry over the notion of joy and also the basic notion of discipline, mindfulness, and then on the top of that you have some sense of peace, some sense of rest. That rest is not that you have to actually manufacture your restfulness. But restfulness is automatic. If we are willing to be with some sense of non-aggression, gentleness. And according to the Buddhist tradition, that when anybody, including vicious animals, have their sense of gentleness in them, so it is not a hopeless situation. So gentleness is innate nature for sentient beings, basic existence, basic dignity already. And that's why you take a bodhisattva vow to acknowledge that gentleness exists in you, and transplant bodhicitta, the enlightened heart, in your system, which is more of acknowledgement rather than switching yourself into something good, which you may have, may not have it. So in this case, gentleness, patience, is again a mark of a decency of some kind. It's also a mark of being grown up in some sense. That you're no longer attracted or attracted to a situation in which you think you could play a game of aggression. But you have given up possibilities of gaining anything out of aggression, and begin to see the ugliness of aggression, the sloppiness of the aggression. So one begin to develop a sense of perfect patience. Next one is exertion, vriya, which again carries over for the whole rest of it. And vriya, exertion in the dictionary language has the definition of working hard worker. But again, we have to reflect back to the first paramita, which is generosity. And when we have a sense of basic generosity, we also have some sense of delight involved with that. Well, that delight comes along with the vriya, exertion. If you don't have sense of delight in the situation, you can't have exertion either. So therefore, again and again, that we begin to experience some sense of delight and inquisitiveness, that we want to find out how things work. If you are inquisitive enough that you have no problem in exerting yourself into trying to find out what's going on with the situation. So same thing also could apply in the pursuit of enlightenment. And you are so inquisitive how the notion of enlightenment could be possible, and how I, Joe Schmidt, can actually do so. And so Mr. Joe Schmidt is so fascinated, and he began to feel so inquisitive. So Mr. Joe Schmidt began to have a tremendous exertion, and he practices a lot, and he has a tremendous discipline. He has also tremendous patience at the same time. So the whole thing is escalating the level of a joy at this point of the path. There is tremendous things to go ahead, look forward, and you begin to feel full of it. So we have a tremendous exertion, which then becomes hard work. If you have a partner, husband or wife, who is not interested in enlightenment, and she or he might find you rather crazy, working day and night, practicing a lot. But then we must go on, in spite of those situations. Next one is concentration or meditation. Dhyana. which is similar to Dhyan, which is Zen, the same terminology. Meditation, we have a definition in the English language, in the dictionary's point of view, which is something comparable to contemplation, that you meditate on something, upon something, you have achieved that meditative state of mind. But in our case, of the Buddhist approach, meditation is an unconditional term. Just meditate, and meditation, active meditation, is unconditional situation, where you also again bring the shamatha-vipashyana basic principles, so that we have enough sense of dignity and a sense of virtuousness, and also a sense of togetherness that we experience when we sit, or when even we may not sit on the zafus, but we may just walk around doing our shopping or driving up in the mountains, whatever. Still, there's a sense of stillness, goodness. Which is produced by a sense of joy of the first blooming, of the first paramita, generosity, discipline, patience, exertion of the joy, which brings us to a sense of a concentratedness. So the idea is, in this case, meditation meaning sense of being there all the time, a basic notion of how to exist as person. If we want to exist as a person, we have to be there as a person. And so you're 100% there on the spot. Which is very basic. If we are not there, we can't actually practice the 5 types of skillful means of the Paramitas of generosity, discipline, patience, exertion, and concentration. So some sense of being there on the spot. Just existing on the spot, awake, fully being there, which covers the rest of it, hangs together properly, fully. And the 5th one is a very important one. Six Paramita, as we talked already before, which is the intellect and discriminating awareness, which actually works together with the rest of the 4, so that we have some sense of actually how we're doing, what we're doing, and there will be some sense of understanding, some comprehension as to how we can actually conduct our life according to those principles. And on the whole, all of those situations are based on the idea of wakefulness and delight. Wakefulness meaning there's a sense of precision involved, and delight meaning some sense of trust in oneself, and one's teacher, one's path, and so on. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We could have a discussion on that, if you like.
How do these qualities which you've discussed as discipline, patience, exertion, different from, let's say, non-Buddhist qualities of patience, exertion, discipline, which are developed perhaps in any discipline, whether it be a love for butterflies or, nuclear physics, whatever?
Well, that's very interesting. I was trying to be clear on the idea of definitions on them. That these kind of disciplines we discussed have definite sense of every one of them started from a sense of shamatha-vipashyana experience, and also based on the idea of non-ego, non-striving. Whereas I suppose the rest of the disciplines, other than this, have come from believing in oneself a great deal and thinking that you are going to be a big shot eventually, sooner or later. Or you're going to have a great idea, great pleasure in yourself. So our approach is you're not going to be a big shot, you're not going to have the greatest pleasure in doing this, but you have some sense of joy coming out of that. That seem to be the differences.
How about for some, let's say in an artistic level, one who's completely devoted to one's art, whether it be poetry or painting, and nothing else seems to come in between that passion or devotion to one's discipline. Is there a difference in that concern?
Well, that is very much localized situation. What we are talking here is one's life, completely. So somebody might have a good idea on one particular point and taking delight in how they have invented a screwdriver and appreciating their technology 100%. But that's just one area of their life. And they don't actually experience the screwdriver-ness of it. And they just stuck with the screwdriver itself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody must be reached the level of great joy.
Is the seventh paramita skillful means a new development or just refinement of first six?
Well, paramita of skillful means refer to the rest of the five of them. And then you have skillful means and wisdom, which is connected with the prajna. You see what I mean?
So they revolve around dhyana and prajna?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, according to the sutra, it has been said, the prajna is like the ocean, and the rest of the five paramitas is like a river, which runs to the ocean and meet the ocean.
And so the analogy is stretching it further. The 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the clouds above the ocean or some sort? Evaporation?
Well, that's in the form of more rivers you have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we should stop there at this point, and hopefully everybody's practicing and studying hard, and maybe you could use your practice and study the principles being presented to you. You could actually start doing it right now and developing your generosity to begin with and the rest of it. And with your discriminating awareness wisdom, you probably can do a great deal of a job even tonight before you go to bed. Well, thank you very much.